In a recent interview of yours, you mentioned that the next crisis will probably be the largest one in your life. Would you like to share your view there?
Well, Ron, you remember 2008, we had a big problem. It was a huge worldwide financial and economic problem because of too much debt. Since 2009, Ron, the debt everywhere has skyrocketed. It's gone up by many, many percentage points, not just in America. Even China has a lot of debt now. 25 years ago, China didn't have any debt, or virtually no debt. So everywhere has built up huge amounts of debt. So I thought it was just a simple statement that the next bear market, and we've always had bear markets and we always will, the next bear market has to be huge, the worst in my lifetime, because the debt is so staggering in the last few years.
Is this happening now, or you are still waiting for some form of a black swan event?
Well, the debt goes higher every day, every hour. Since we've been talking, the debt everywhere has gotten higher and higher. It seems that we may be in the bear market now. If we're not, it's maybe in the last stages of the bull market. My own expectation, but Ron, I'm bad at market timing, but is that we will have there's a lot of pessimism around right now. So usually when there's so much pessimism, something happens to cause people to get optimistic for a while. If that happens, I mean, suppose, this is not a prediction, this is an analogy. Suppose there were peace in Ukraine, the markets would go up a lot, but that would be the last rally as far as I can see. In other words, basically we may have another rally, but we're getting close to the end. Either we're in the bear market now or it's very soon going to be here.
To solve a debt crisis, ultimately you could only have three solutions. Either you have huge economic growth, so you grow out of the problem, or either you default your debt, or number three, you have high inflation. Do you think it is government's best interest to actually keep inflationary pressure high, keep inflation rate high?
Well, these guys are not that smart, Ron. You act like they know what they're doing. You act like they sit around and say, what we should do now is inflate our currency, and that way we'll get rid of the debt. These are not very smart people. That's why they work for the government. They can't get a real job. So it is most likely that we will accidentally continue to have inflation. It's only a year ago that they told us there was no inflation, and then they said, it's transitory, don't worry, it's not going to last long. And now, of course, they tell us they have it under control. I've learned long ago, Ron, that these guys don't know what they're doing, and we should not listen to them. In American history, we've only had probably two good central bankers in our history. By the way, Americans had three central banks in our history. The first two disappeared. They made so many mistakes that they disappeared. This one might disappear too eventually because they don't know what they're doing either. But no, central banks, they have a lot of press and they tell everybody how smart they are, but most of them are not very smart. They're bureaucrats and academics, and they make as many mistakes. They mainly try to keep their jobs. They don't care about you, Ron. They care about their jobs. And that's what they try to maintain. Will they get it right? Probably not.
So do you think we're going back to a period like the 1970s with stagflation and all that?
I would suspect if I had to say what we're going back to like, it would be more like the 1970s than most other things, because they have printed a lot of money. They continue to print money. And when I say they, I mean most central banks around the world think that that's the way to solve problems.
So if we are
It's not, but that's the way they think.
So if we are indeed going back to the 1970s, what's a good investment solution?
Well, if you want to make money, there were people who made money in the 1970s. It's not the same thing. Remember, in the 1970s, the U.S. was still a creditor nation. Now we're the largest debtor nation in history. There was Soviet Union in the 1970s. There was Red China, still Red China, but now it's a much different kind of economy. So many things have changed since then. But Money printing has not changed. The bureaucrats have not changed. So I suspect that if things do calm down for a while and then the economy slows, they'll print more money because that's all they know to do. And the inflation will come back and go higher.
You generated over 4,000% in the 1970s. What were some of your ideas and trades during that period?
Well, we had a lot of things and we used a lot of leverage, which I don't do so much anymore. But we shorted the pound sterling. That was, in 1976, the pound sterling went bankrupt. I mean, England went bankrupt. That was a successful trade. We owned a lot of commodities because there was so much inflation. We owned things that were going up in value. We owned a variety of things. But Ron, that was a long, long time ago. Telling you what I did then is not going to do most people any good now in 2023.
Going back to commodities, you've always been a big fan of commodities, and you called the last commodity super cycle with a very timely publication of your book, Hot Commodities, in 2004. And really, we saw a commodity boom. And do you think we are entering another super cycle again?
Well, whether it's a super cycle or not, I don't really know. It doesn't matter if you own commodities and they go up, whatever it is, you make money. And I suspect we're going to see, because of the crisis, the epidemic, it's affected supply in a lot of commodities. And if you have lower supply, ultimately, you're going to have much higher prices. Plus, there are changes taking place in the world. Looks like we're going to have electric vehicles. Well, electric vehicles use several times more copper, lead, lithium, use a lot more of some things than petrol vehicles. So there are fundamental changes taking place in the world, which will mean that some commodities will go much higher over the next decade or two.
What commodities do you like most right now?
Well, I guess if I was buying something today, it would probably be agriculture, because agriculture has been such a disaster for so long. The average age of farmers in America is 58 years old. The average age in Japan is 66. I mean, more people commit suicide in the UK in agriculture than any other industry. I mean, agriculture has been a disaster for a long time. And usually disasters lead to bull markets. We got to wear clothes, we got to eat food. And so unless something dramatic changes, we are going to eat food for the rest of our lives.
You mentioned earlier about silver. What about gold? Gold has seen a sell-off since last year. Gold, silver, platinum, any particular favorite of yours?
Well, I own all of the above, gold and silver. If I were buying something today, and I'm not buying any of them today, I would buy silver. Silver is down 70% from its all-time high. Gold is only down, 15% from its all-time high. So based on price alone, silver is cheaper today. And if I were buying either of them, I would buy silver. I will be buying more of both somewhere along the line. I don't know when, but no, before this is over, silver and gold will go much, much, much higher. All precious metals will go much, much higher.
What about oil and gas and coal prices? Gas prices in Europe is in Brent equivalent terms at around $300 per barrel. Do you have any comments on the energy crisis in Europe and how it will play out?
Well, some of the current, at least temporary part of the energy crisis is because of the war in Ukraine and cutting off Russian supplies. Let's hope that that's not a permanent state of affairs. Let's hope that this war is not going to last forever. But having said that, known reserves of hydrocarbons do continue to decline. They've been going down for a long time, known reserves. Now, for a while, that was tempered by the fracking. Fracking came along, fracking turned into a bubble. We still have fracking, but the bubble is not there anymore. So it has helped, but known reserves still continue to decline, even with fracking out there. So no, we're going to have higher prices of oil and gas, natural gas, in the future until eventually maybe we will have electric vehicles, maybe we will have solar power and you know, all the rest of them. But in the meantime, I would not sell my energy. Well, if the war ends, obviously energy is going to come down for a while. That would probably be a time to buy more energy.
And what's your take on Ukraine and Russia right now? Do you think this will end soon, or this is going to linger on in the foreseeable future?
Well, you know, the problem is America and NATO stumbled, clumsily got us into this war with stuff that they started doing back in 2008, 2014. Finally, of course, Russia invade. I'm not defending Russia. Don't get me wrong. I'm not defending Mr. Putin invading or anything. But finally, you know, Putin felt he had to do something. That's his decision, certainly not mine. And now, unfortunately, that war has gotten deeper and deeper than any of them wanted, including America, including Russia. So it looks like it's going to go on for a while. I don't know what good it's doing anybody, including Mr. Putin. So I'm sure both sides would like to get out of this somehow. The problem is when wars start, people usually suddenly realize, oh, this is crazy. Let's get out of this. But it's hard to get out of the war once it's started for many, many reasons. So it should end. It should end tomorrow. It should never have started. I see that everybody wants out. Hopefully somebody will get us out of it.
Well, if this conflict doesn't end and the energy crisis continues, that means renewables must step up. Do you have any views on renewables technology? Are you a fan of wind or solar?
Ron, we all want clean air. Nobody says, oh, I love dirty air. I love dirty water. No, we all want clean air. The problem is it's not efficient yet. It's not competitive yet. Yes, we do have solar power. We do have wind power, et cetera, but much of it has subsidies. And if you have subsidized power, of course, it's competitive for a while, but it's still got subsidies. And that's part of the problem with these alternatives right now. They're still not economically competitive. Now, if oil goes to $200 a barrel, they'll be competitive and they will have bigger and bigger markets. But in the meantime, the problem is they're, as much as we want clean air, they still cost money. And when people go turn the switch, they want the lights to go on. And if the lights don't go on, they're going to complain a great deal.
Yes, we are drawing to a close. One last question for you, Jim. You've written books and you wrote books even for your children, giving them life advice. So as you painted a very dim outlook in the years to come, what is your advice to your children? What should they do? Where should they go?
Well, yes, I have portrayed a more bear markets and more economic problems, but that's been happening since the beginning of time. They always happen. Some of them are worse than others, and some last much longer than others. I guess the main thing I want to make sure my children know is they understand history and how the world works, and that we have always had bear markets and we always will. So that's important for them to know. The main thing for them to know is only invest in what you yourself know a lot about, or whatever passion you have in life, that's what you should pursue. If you want to be a gardener, go ahead and be a gardener if that's your real passion. Just figure out what you love the most. Don't listen to your teachers, your family, your friends. Figure out what you love the most and pursue it, no matter how crazy. In fact, if it sounds crazy, really pursue it. The crazier it sounds, the better. Do what you love.
Thank you so much for your advice, Jim. And I'll see you soon in Hong Kong or in Singapore. Thank you so much.
Or somewhere, Ron, somewhere. Let's hope so.
Great.
Not in quarantine. I hope I don't see you in quarantine.
Sounds good. Thank you so much, Jim.
Thank you.
Take care.
Bye-bye.